welcome to Wildflowers Live. This is, I'll introduce my co-host in just a moment, but I just wanted to let our listeners know that we do this every week at 10 o'clock on Sundays. And what we do is read a bit from one of the stories in my memoir, Wildflowers, and whoops, look at that. I have Post-its everywhere. I'm such a teacher like that on Wildflowers and present tenses. And the interesting thing about reading these stories is that it always really kind of ignites a conversation about all kinds of things that we have in common, about relationships, about conflictedness in the world, about body image, about coming out, about all kinds of things. So today, this particular story, Tasting the Ocean, kind of what I do in this story is I'm talking about I like to talk about a few things at the same time in my stories. So we have my character. I am conflictedly traveling home and kind of dealing with all of the angst of being on a train and traveling home and those thoughts, while being very conflicted about leaving my lover behind, who I have a closeted relationship with, a secret relationship. And what the heck was I thinking, right? So there's that, like, how did I get there, right? A closeted relationship. And then kind of reflecting on all of my relationships and kind of what was going on, just kind of taking that train ride to reflect on relationships and love and where I've been and where I am now in my love, in my affair, in my relationship, and also traveling home to a place that doesn't feel like home anymore. So that's kind of what's going on in this story, and it touches on a lot of things that so many of us experience. So that's why we do it. We read a few excerpts from the story. We talk about these general things. People share their stories. We have a lively conversation. I always enjoy it. So that's what we do, and we'll be doing that. We'll have 14. We have 14 Sundays to do this because there's 14 stories. And we'll see what we do after that. But at any rate, just before we start, if you have not already purchased my book, the best way to purchase it, where you're going to get the best deal, is on my website, pattyluciawrites.com. You'll get a 15% discount. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, you get an additional 10% for a total of 25% off. And that's much better than what you will pay at Barnes & Noble or Amazon if you're getting the hardcover. Of course, the least expensive way to go is the ebook, which is available online, so you can get that as well. So without further ado, I would love to introduce my co-host, who I love and adore so much, my daughter from another lifetime, probably from many other lifetimes. But we've discussed we were probably other things too, weren't we?
I might have been your mom once.
Yeah, my mother.
I like yelling at you. So.
Yeah, you do. And I think that's residual from a few lifetimes there. Yeah. So, but that's okay, because we've been through this so much that we're really nonplussed by any of this. It's like, yeah, whatever, Yeah. Yeah, whatever. I love you. I still love you. I'll always love you.
Rowing down the river in this one. In this lifetime, we're like, let's just chill and enjoy the view, eh?
That's right. Merrily, merrily, merrily. What is it? Merrily, 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 merrily.
Life is but a dream.
Life is but a dream, my dear. Yes, it is.
Yes. So, or simulation, whatever you believe.
Don't go Elon Musk on me now.
Oh, God.
All right. Introduce
yourself. By the way, Elon Musk says, $100 million you can invent trees. Yeah. My name is Taylor. I am the smart ass co-host. I just really like to pick Patti apart and her stories, and it's fun.
I love it when you do. I just love it.
There have been many a days in the cafe of us girls just kind of taking over her kitchen, and she was like the mediator of all of our lives. And so I was just really grateful to be a part of that. So I picked this story today because, well, I like the juice. Everybody likes some sauce. And I even put my big hoops in for this one.
Wait a
Put my
minute. What do
big
you,
Boricua
when
hoops
you, wait
in.
a minute, wait a minute. Hey, hey, Taylor, catch me up on the lingo. I'm a lot older than you. So juice,
Okay, so some
juice,
juice.
is
We
that
getting
the sexy
juicy.
stuff? Sexy stuff? Is
We
that what
getting
you're?
juicy. Yeah, gotta get juicy. Okay. On this train ride, we get juicy. Patty tasted the ocean. Okay. I'm gonna make her blush
Right.
now.
I know. I wrote it and I'm
Um.
blushing. What's up with that?
Yeah. Yeah. We discuss different lovers and what those can look like and what they give us and what they take and this ebb and flow of the ocean. I think that tasting the ocean was a perfect um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, way to put this.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
many stops that we stop on this train ride with Patty. That I think that, like she writes, the final destination is always love.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not love for others, perhaps it's love for self. So lessons in
So
all of
many.
the different seas that she swam.
So many.
Sorry,
I
couldn't
mean,
help.
yeah, I love a good metaphor. Oceans, train. Um,
You are for the metaphors. Yes.
I am. I'm so full of
Uh-huh.
metaphors.
Hmm.
Um, so, and thank you, Taylor. It is such a blessing to have you here and to have my regulars. Anoki is with us, Robin, Shannon. Nice to have you. So we're going to jump into it, and as some of you already know, the narrator of this collection of short stories is actually a wise and wild and kind of magical crone who is sitting by the fire and telling these stories. And this crone is an imagined future self. It's my imagined future self. And she's kind of introducing each story from kind of an older, wiser perspective on it in looking back. I have to tell you, that was a lot of fun to imagine. I had a lot of fun creating the crone, and I am certainly looking forward to living my way into her. But her introduction, I'll read the introduction.
The fairies are my favorite.
The fairies, I know. Yeah, me too. Yeah, that's right. We have the fairies as well because you have to. So, the crone, the introduction of the crone. Love is a train, says the crone. It has many stops, but only one destination. I thought I was looking for love in the hearts and soft skin of lovers, but I was looking for myself. And when I ran from the lack of love, the loss of love, from heartbreak, I was running from my own love, my own heart, my own tenderness. The train was always traveling home to me. The fairies sit up. They like trains. They pick petals off a wildflower, fold them into flying things, and send them into the fire. So, metaphors, trains, traveling home to ourselves. Um, so, this story begins. You know what, Taylor? I think I'll read just the beginning of it to just kind of jump in,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
you can
Just
read.
to kind of explain the prerequisite to this, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, and I know you
it
have.
wasn't always easy to go home
Ooh,
for you.
ooh, no.
And so maybe we can just give them a little bit of why that was.
Oh yeah. Do you want to do that now or after I read the
Well,
first?
I think even maybe just reading it kind of does that for you.
Okay. All right. So this is how the story begins. Tasting the ocean. I'm on the 10:30 Amtrak to Springfield and I'm thinking about my mother, my lover, and a woman in my writing class whose name I can't remember, but whose face comes back to me from time to time whenever I travel to my hometown. I will call her Brett. It's Labor Day weekend, and I have no business squeezing in a visit to Springfield before the New York public schools open on Tuesday. I should be home doing laundry, checking my wardrobe, and packing books and supplies for my classroom. I should be grocery shopping so I can pack a lunch every day. My mom was pretty insistent. It was almost impossible to say no after she offered to buy my ticket. She is disappointed that I am not staying for a whole the whole 3-day weekend. I told her the school custodian was opening the school on Monday so that teachers could set up their classrooms. That was a lie. I wanted to spend the day with Tyena, and I was supposed to be on the train at 7 this morning, but there was no way I was going to get up at 5 and leave Tyena in my bed. No way in hell.
Quick question.
Yeah.
At this juncture, did your mother have the inclination that you were gay?
Oh,
You
yeah.
had already brought a woman to your father's funeral. I mean, at this
Oh, yeah.
point, you had pretty much, there was never a time where you looked at her and said, "Hey, mom, I like women."
Yeah.
But I think that it was just something that evolved and became part of you so much so that you eventually chose not to hide it. But in your world growing up, it was not acceptable.
Right. Well, so, and we go into this in another story. It was not acceptable, but it was almost impossible for me to hide. So
Yeah.
moved out of my family home when I was 18, just 3 months before I graduated from high school. And I did it because I had my first girlfriend. And it was just a matter of time, before I would be discovered and kicked out anyway. Because that kind of thing was an abomination in my home. And so there had been years leading up to this where I felt stranger and stranger in my own home, in the home that I grew up in. Much more and more of a more and more of a stranger, more and more other than the others, more and more different. And I couldn't really talk about it. So the choice for particularly for someone who's gay, or lesbian or trans, and the decision to leave one's home and be separated from their family is a very, very difficult decision, and it's very, very traumatic, because we all would like to have the comfort and support of our family. We all would like to have families that accept us no matter what, but that doesn't happen. And so as you grow old, as you kind of are coming into yourself, and this was true for me, I realized that I was in a lose lose situation, that
Mm,
I needed to, in order for me to live my life, to live this authentic life, to go out and kind of explore who the heck I was and what I was doing, and follow my heart and all of these things, and live authentically, even if at that time I didn't even word it that way, but that's really what it was about, right?
yeah.
I had to leave my family. I had to leave my parents, because I could not do that at home in the structure of my family. I could not do any of that. So I literally had to I literally had to separate from my family to move out. And the fallout was that that the way they understood it is that I abandoned my family, that I
Right.
caused this rift, that I was the problem. And but you see how that's a lose lose situation, and this
Yeah.
happens for so many lesbian and gay young people. And that is a trauma that we often spend the rest of our lives trying to heal, and it's
Yeah.
trauma that gets triggered every time you go home for the holidays, for a weekend, for a funeral, for whatever it is. Every time you go home, that trauma is triggered, and you kind of relive it, because it's unless people have come along in their acceptance, of you, then it will just keep, it'll keep coming to the surface. And so
It's just a
that went on.
perpetual.
It's a perpetual, yeah. So and so going home, so even though my mother was like, come home, I'll buy your ticket, and all of that, I knew that there was that even going home, even with those gestures, I was always angsty and anxious and nervous and cranky when I was deciding whether to go home. I never had the experience of saying, "Yay, I'm going home this weekend. Bye.
Right.
See you Monday. I'm going to go have a great time with my family."
Yeah.
Never once.
And
Be,
then there was this like conundrum about your hometown too, you know.
yeah. Well, there was this in that we'll talk about that next week when we read Like Water, because I grew up in Springfield, Massachusetts, and even when I was young in elementary school, that town was dying. It was dying. There were plywood boards up on Macy's and Caldor, and even when I went back for a period of time in 2017, now right in 2017, Springfield had not recovered, and their solution to the economic problem of their downtown was to, wait for it, build a casino in downtown Springfield. That was their solution. And so I was a little bit like, when I went back, I was a little bit taken back by how excited people were about this. It was like,
Mm.
you're actually excited about that? You actually
Yeah.
think that's a real solution? And there was like this kind of
Right.
like this didn't, what? What reality did I just step into? This is weird. And so, but that is Springfield. So from the time I was quite young, I was planning ways to escape. So I got out of Springfield as quickly as I could when I got a little
Yeah.
older.
In this story, you actually explain how you felt safer and more at home in the wild concrete jungle of Harlem and New York City,
Yeah,
which says a lot. Which says a
yeah.
lot. Because I'm a city girl, and I don't think that I would feel comfortable in that place.
In New York,
Um, yeah, yeah.
I
I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. But I
I
think that for you, it was an escape.
it was, and it also. I tell you what, the first time I arrived in New York City, I was on a bus, and it was coming into New York, and I was looking at the sidewalks, and I was looking at all the people who were walking down the sidewalks, and I saw so many colors and so many persuasions, and I saw multiracial, like biracial couples and families, and I just, gay people and this and that, and I was like, what? this is this is heaven. This is heaven, because that's kind of how I rolled. I liked, hanging out with, a wide range of people, and of course I was gay, so I welcomed that kind of open, even if it was wild and kind of chaotic
It was a
environment.
freedom.
It was a sort
Yeah.
of freedom there that I knew I could experience in New York, that I could not experience. Even when I moved to Boston, I lived in Boston for a short period of time, hated it. Sorry, Bostonians, hated it, because it had this veneer of everything is wonderful and liberal and we accept everyone. And that was not my experience in Boston. I had some really rough, yeah, I had some rough stories that didn't make it into my memoir, about living in Boston. So yeah, didn't like Boston at all. So yeah, New York was a welcome relief, to New England. Basically, generally New England. Yeah, it's a very different feel. But at any
So
rate,
in the story,
yeah,
we talk about a lover of yours. We talk about quite a few of your lovers. I think you kind of, while you're
I
on that train, you
yeah,
kind of run through uh, the gamut of the lovers in which you had shared your heart with. But one in particular who really, really was in love with you and you were in love with her. However, you both knew that it could not be. Uh, it was a love that was, I don't want to say not loud, uh,
It
but
was
you
a
knew that it was a temporary love, I guess.
yes, yes,
She had to follow the ways of her family,
right.
and then you say she was not gay. She just loves me, and I think that's an interesting observation because in the lesbian world, I think that happens more than you think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, I mean,
Yeah.
I might be a mother of four, but I definitely relate to that. I don't think I would ever shove my love in a closet, but I definitely can relate to being in relationships that I knew wouldn't last with a woman, even though they felt so good.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read a little snippet.
Yeah. Please.
Um, Tyna, is that correct?
Taina.
Tyna is my lover, but almost no one knows that. She's not gay. She just loves me. The other teachers at our school have no idea that that Tyena and I meet secretly at my place almost every afternoon and play house. We feed my cat, Smokey, cook a meal and eat, watch a little TV, and make love. Not always in that order. Tyena lives with her two older brothers and goes home with some reasonable explanation for why she can't make it to dinner most evenings. I've been in love before, and I've been heartbroken, and I've done the breaking. But I have never stuffed my love in a closet until I fell in love with Tyna. So here we have this really beautiful love, but it's a secret.
Right.
And it's not a secret because it's an affair or, it's this tumultuous rendezvous, but you kept it a secret to protect Tyna's future,
Right.
her religious beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
You sacrificed a lot for this love. What I took from this the first time reading this. And
Mm-hmm.
Tyena is not the real name of this person, and
No.
um, I've become familiar with this story over the years, and this is always one that was heartbreaking for me. Learning
Yeah.
about. You were very close, and I believe remain close for some time. Uh, but this one was this is a hard relationship for you,
Well, it's kind of
especially the day you got on that train.
yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot going on the train because I'm going home to visit a family, and that for religious reasons, I felt like a stranger in my family because according to both religions in my household, there was, my mom was Catholic, my father is Baptist. It's an abomination for both. It wasn't like I had a liberal
You got
religion.
double, yeah, you had
Double,
double
double,
hit.
and so I was going home to this kind of situation, and I was also leaving it. So the kind of the search for home, whereas I've wanted to find home in the arms of a lover, and yet I found some of the very conflicts and the very struggles and the very challenges that I had when I returned home to Springfield. And that was for religious reasons. Our We could never really be open and honest about our relationship because it would be considered an abomination, and the ramifications for her, because she's a Seventh Day Adventist. So the ramifications for her would be that she would be erased. That's what they do. They erase you from the church, and it's a very
I cannot imagine using that
it's
terminology
you
with
yeah
my
that, yeah,
children.
yeah, that's the
That
word.
is
It's the
that is
equivalent.
terrible.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of being excommunicated. And
Yes.
so that's some serious stuff. And so um, there was just no way that was going to happen. So we had this closeted relationship for 3-4 years, and it was really difficult. And then she knew that when she, the plan was is that she was going to marry a man from the church, and make a family with him. That was the plan, and there was no real getting around it. Even though I liked to fantasize that if our love was strong enough and deep enough, that we could somehow escape that situation and, run off
Yeah.
and have our and have our love somewhere else, away from family and away from conflict. But that was a fantasy, and so much of my conflict here was dealing with the kind of the reality of the relationship and the fantasy that I wanted to write about it.
Absolutely.
Did you want to read another part?
So on this train ride, you kind of start having flashbacks of leaving your mother's house just before graduation with your first girlfriend, Jolene. Uh, which is, it's really interesting how far you come from before graduation, and relationships can be so sloppy, and young love can be so messy, and that's kind of what you're experiencing here. uh, I don't know if you'd like to. There's just one line here in this part of the book that I really enjoyed. I mean, I enjoyed it all, but one that really caught me and gave me a giggle. Um, this in particular girlfriend liked to drink and was quite jealous. And you had split a car with her. So uh, I'm just going to read this one part. Jolene and I split the cost of a green Mustang with a 3-speed shift on the column. When I got tired of her drunkenness, jealous, rageous, I put her bags out on the porch, and she drove off with my half of the car. How the hell did I end up dating my father? I wondered. I retold that story whenever Mary Beth and Sandy had a few beers and wanted to laugh. So at some juncture, you got to realize how familiar
Right.
this was to
Right.
your father.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, like, they say too that your relationships will often reflect perhaps your relationship with your mother, your relationship with your father. And I think I've vacillated between the two in
Yeah.
in my relationships. Yeah. So um let's see. So I go through this litany of and it's kind of funny. I mean, some of them are kind of funny, like my relationship with Carol and how I was completely in love with her. And there was this point where we liked to make love outside, and we would go to the Cape and make love in the dunes, but we had to kind of time it just right. So when the ranger wasn't coming by, and there was this one night that we both worked in the hospital. That's where we met. And we had to go to our shifts that began at 11:30 at night. And it was early evening, it was around sunset. And so we went to our last visit to a beach, kind of a quiet beach. And decided and pulled these roots out of a cliff and made a little fire and made love by the fire. It was so romantic. And then realized
So romantic.
it's so romantic. But then when we went back and we went to the hospital and we started our shifts, she was a nurse and I was a messenger. We were, working through our shifts. And at some point in the night, she called me and said, "Are you itchy?" And it turned out that we had burnt poison ivy roots for our little romantic fire. And so there's a line here, the only two poison ivy cases in the hospital. If I believed at the time that the universe gives us warning signs when we need them, I would have seen the warning. Our most romantic moment was poisonous. So, and so later that year, she broke my heart. So there were, so
Now, let me ask you, sorry to
yeah,
interrupt. The Celeste, is that her name?
yeah.
Hey, you know what? You're driving me batshit crazy. Hang out with my friend Celeste. You don't say. But it seems that Celeste stole your girl.
She did.
I'm having a little bit of feedback. So if you guys can check your microphones and just make sure you're muted, I would appreciate it. So she did. Celeste and Carol ended up together, and you just say that was really stupid or really naive. Maybe I was both. Some people would say it was really stupid or really naive.
Yeah.
I also experienced this in my young crazy years, and I just remember that heartbreak. Like,
Yeah.
did you just sleep with her?
Yeah.
But you sleep with me.
Yeah. I was
kidding?
heartbroken. Yeah. That's when I started running 5 miles a day. And, like those endorphins really helped. And I took me a while to get over that. And unfortunately, I honestly think, like, after a heartbreak like that, if you get back into a relationship too quickly, it's a big mistake. And it was. And so the relationships that I had shortly after that were, I wasn't there. I wasn't healed.
My experience in that, I had my girlfriend sleep with my girl roommate, and I woke up to the sounds, and I remember being so infuriated and screaming in her face, this far away from her face, and this is when I knew it was tumultuous and toxic, and I needed to run. But she looked me dead square in my eyes and went, "Oh, you're so sexy when you're mad. Hit me." And I was like, "Ah!"
Right.
I hit you.
Right. Can you say dysfunction?
Devil. Oh, toxic, poison.
Yeah.
So that was my poison ivy.
Yeah.
And then you had some really soft, gentle lovers. There's one, Terry, who had constellations of freckles across her cheeks. Her auburn hairs grew wild on her head. Her auburn curls grew wild on her head and made her look like a grown-up little Annie. She was safe and steadfast. Not the one.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this was a relationship, like I said, I got into after my heartbreak. I was still heartbroken. And I wasn't able to be fully present with Terry. And Terry's this wonderful, I mean, we are friends today. I don't know, like one of these days it'd be cool if she listened to this, or if she read the book, because I really wondered years after why I didn't fall in love with Terry, because Terry was awesome. She was amazing. And she is now with her lover of like 30 some odd years. And they have 2 beautiful daughters who are now in college. Hello. I mean, that was Terry. Was Terry. And so
she was looking for the long haul.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could have been it. But
I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't. I was too heartbroken. I was too broken at that time, and not allowing myself to heal. And I really do think that this is something that goes on to today, till today. I think people have a hard time being alone, in the world. People are very afraid of being alone. And I'm not saying that critically. I experienced it. I know what that feels like.
Mm.
And that had me going from relationship to relationship to relationship, because I was also afraid of being alone. And I really found like that, that's how I found home. That's how I found stability. That's how I kind of anchored myself in this world, was through a lover, because I didn't have that experience with family. So we put so much
You poured your
into
whole soul
you
into this.
pour,
Yeah.
yes, you do. And the
And you
thing,
can tell that with time,
mm-hmm,
it affected your heart. Because at 19 with Helen, after that breakup, which was purposely done by you, quite lovely execution, I might add, you went from slow gin fizzes and Donna Summer, okay,
mm-hmm,
to breaking up with Terry and looking for danger in one night stands, cocaine, and doers on the rock.
mm-hmm, yeah,
I got to tell you, that line really got me, because that
did
is,
it?
we all look at you like a goddamn monk. Excuse my
Mm-hmm,
language. So,
mm-hmm.
somebody's laughing with me. I can feel it.
Yeah, but that's kind of,
That's a big heartbreak. That's a big jump.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
some serious unresolved uh,
mm-hmm,
heartbreak that you
absolutely.
are looking dead in the face.
Mm-hmm,
Uh, and I think that after Terry, uh, especially even after Terry, you were like, ah, fuck it,
yeah,
just gonna I'm just gonna do me.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was, and then and then I met Janine, and Janine was very middle class. Now, I'm from a poorer working class family, right? We didn't, like we were secretly on welfare. Like my parents
Yeah,
didn't admit it to us, but we were.
yeah, yeah.
And, in a very volatile, even violent family. And so there was all of this, stuff. So going out with like a middle class girl, from the Midwest was attractive to me in a way, but she saw my instability. So she wanted to kind of help me balance my life and balance my checkbook, I
And
think
your
is one of
checkbook.
in my checkbook, because my finances were fucked. My emotionality was, I was volatile, so I mean, people
Yeah,
saw the diamond in the rough, but I was also kind of wackadoo. And so she wanted to kind of come in and be that stability for me. And I decided that's when I decided I wanted to be a political activist. So I left for New York to become a leftist activist, and kind of left Janine. She actually ended up following me to New York and became an activist herself, but we didn't stay together. So, but that's kind of, yeah, that was the progression, but all the while looking for meaning, looking for a sense of home, a sense of meaning, a sense of stability in my life, because it all goes back to the lack of you know, the lack
yeah,
of and that rupture in my relationship with my family. Yeah.
absolutely. And we were just trying to fill in these holes,
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
gaps
Yeah.
in your heart.
And when you're young, you're like, fuck you. I don't need you anyway. I'm going to create my own life and it's going to be awesome. It's going to
I
be
don't
so
need you.
awesome. And then you're going to be like, oh, I feel so bad that I treated you so badly. This is childish. But at the time, we're just kind of like so full of, rebelliousness and like, I'm going to go out there
Angst and
and
rebellion,
angst and
anarchy.
rebellion. Yeah, total chaos. But the chaos of the heart, chaos of the spirit. So that's kind of what it looked like going from relationship to relationship. In New York, I lived a more polyamorous life. I was more polyamorous in New York, until I met Linda, and we had this really beautiful,
I
stable.
liked Linda.
Linda's beautiful. Linda, like, and Linda and I are in touch too, you know. So, and and she's like Miss Stability, always steady. She was, she was a social worker. So sometimes she'd look at me and say,
Mm.
I wonder, like, do you need
I'm
therapy?
gonna take you home and fit. Yeah, you need some. Girl, I better work on that.
I actually was in therapy for many, many years, and thank goodness it could have been worse. But yeah, so she was, but again, I didn't, did you, I think we lost you, Taylor. Oh, but I think that, I hope that was,
Sorry,
yeah.
lost
Um,
for a second.
so at any rate, but like and what, here's what's interesting too, is a lot of times we don't spend enough time. And I think if you're going from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship, you're not giving yourself enough alone time to reflect on the health of the relationships you've been in. And also, and people kind of write them off. It's like, she was a this, he was a that,
Mhm.
or,
It's yeah, just deflect
yeah, but no,
instead of looking at self, maybe.
we always have to look at self. What's
Yeah.
the point? Or like, people who say that was a waste of 5 years, or that was a waste of my life. And I don't think any of it is a waste. I think it's all very, very valuable. It's rich in lessons. And if we lop
Lesson.
off, yeah, if we lop off these experiences in our life, then what are we really going to learn? And why would we do that? Because why the heck do we think we're here in the first place? I mean,
Mm.
we're here to kind of experience, learn, grow, on all levels, including on a soul level, in my opinion. So it was very, very helpful for me to finally have the time as a single person to really reflect on my relationships and all of kind of what had transpired, and
Yes.
look at the areas that I needed to heal and grow. It takes
My
it.
favorite part. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
My favorite part of your paragraph about Linda
Mm,
is uh, we became each other's beneficiaries, went on vacations and entertained. Linda attended my father's funeral and my sister's wedding. I was finally living a settled life, as smooth and quiet as pond water. But I wanted to taste the salty, dangerous wells of the ocean. So I'm in love again. It feels as good as it did when I was 21, but I'm 40. I'm softer and thicker in most places. My breasts hang a little lower in the mirror, and I have circles under my eyes that have nothing to do with lack of sleep. My hair is thinner and turning gray, but Tyena looks at me and says, I love your eyes and your lips. I love your smile. I love this ass and these breaths. Then she kisses me deep and long, and I know she means it. I watch her watch me and wonder what the hell she sees. So
mm,
even still, you're happy
mhm.
and you are questioning why someone could love you so.
Yeah.
How?
How is that
What do
possible?
they see in me?
Right.
How is that possible?
Mhm.
Which, is baffling, but it's kind of what we do. It's our self dialogue. Even, when you've been through so much in your life, it's just kind of a robotic self expression. It just kind of perpetuates itself.
Yeah, because
And
that love train, right? The train that the crone talks about in the beginning. It's always coming back to us. It's always traveling to us. So my inability to see even accept what she saw in me, had to do with me not seeing myself, not thinking that I was worth
mm,
it, not loving myself.
yes,
It really always, always came back to that.
yes.
That's the train. That's the train home, really.
And that's a beautiful self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so very true.
And it takes, it took me a long time to get there. And I think a lot of times people feel that healing, whether they're healing childhood trauma or sexual trauma or whatever trauma, there's so much trauma. I mean, we live in a world full of trauma. That sometimes people think, well, if I go to this, if I have this Reiki session, or if I go to this weekend workshop, or if I get this massage, or if I lose 20 pounds, I'll be healed. And it doesn't. That's just not how healing. We have to be really patient with healing, because it's really quite a process and it takes time. And I think most of
careful. Healing is messy.
Yeah.
I always love that. We think that ascension is this, really beautiful light, absence of shadow. No, it will rock your fucking world.
Mm-hmm.
The reality of coming into your being and healing yourself hurts so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it takes dark nights of the soul, as we call them, to get there.
Right. I agree.
To have that.
Yes. And I don't want to digress too much away from the story, but just to put it in light of what's going on in our world today, with the whole, pandemic and everything. And people are like, what does this mean? What is the universe saying? Maybe the universe is saying, because I do think we're in the midst or the very beginnings of what we would call the Great Awakening. It's like, fuck no, how could this be the Great Awakening? This sucks. Well, let me tell you, maybe it's the universe. Maybe it's the universe saying, y'all need to sit your asses down, do some fucking inner work. Hello? Sit your asses
I gave you a year.
I gave you a year. You're not going to do it in a year? Well, motherfuckers,
time is relative.
We're going to take 2 years. We're going to take as long as this takes. Right. So, I think.
Time don't matter. Watch me. Y'all go sit. Y'all still in timeout.
Right.
Y'all don't get to come out.
That's right.
Time don't even fucking exist. Y'all gonna sit here until y'all work on your heart. I'm sick of trying to help y'all. Our higher beings, our guides are sitting up here like, they're never gonna learn.
Yeah. It's like, come on, people.
So,
I think that it happens on an individual basis and on a collective basis. And I think that what I've discovered is, I used to want to somehow be a part of this big enlightenment that was happening collectively. And I don't think it's a collective thing. I think it's an individual thing. And I think we all, if we want to heal humankind, then we need to start with ourselves. We need to heal ourselves. And you will do a much greater service for all of humanity by sitting your ass down and, being introspective and healing yourself, self-nurture, self-care, those kinds of things, going inward, healing, taking the time to do it. And if we can't sit still or sit in silence or take that time for ourselves, and we have these impulses, we got to get up, we got to do something, we got to go there, then what that is our resistance to getting closer to ourselves, because the train is always going home to ourselves.
Yes. And on that train, I think about what that would look like. What would that look like? And for me, it would look like, okay, I'm having these thoughts about this past relationship, as an example, as you were doing.
Yeah.
Why am I being triggered? Where is that trigger coming from?
Absolutely.
Deeper, always deeper.
Layers and layers.
Yes. They're, an onion of layers. It's never ending. Well, I feel this way because this lover did this. But that really originates from something my mother did as a child that I watched with my father. And so there are always further layers to peel back and look at while we're on this train called life.
Yeah.
I digress.
No, I don't think it's a digression at all, Taylor. I think this is all part of the theme of the story. There's a lot going on in this simple little story about lovers and Trains. So what would you there's there's this part where I say, and I think that this is kind of important. You know, the scene where, you know, she's, you know, I'm saying I didn't get up at 5 this morning. This is why, you know, this is why I didn't get up at 5.
I
All
think
right.
it's a very important part of the story.
Do you want
This
to?
is kind of where the
Yeah.
heartbreak
Yeah.
hits you right
So,
in the chest.
do
You
you
want me
want
to
to?
read from there?
Yeah, sure.
So I didn't get up at 5 this morning to get on the 7 o'clock train in order to spend a few more hours with my mother this weekend. I wanted to spend it with Tyena. I wanted to wake up first and watch her sleep. I wanted to bring her coffee the way she likes it and watch the way the morning sun glows on her soft brown skin. I wanted to squeeze out every minute before Tyena noticed the time, before she realized it was too late to sneak into the third floor apartment she shares with her brothers and pretend she had been there all night, before she realized she had to make up another story. And as I watch her face peel away, leaving a stranger I do not recognize and who does not recognize me. Is that the time? She says. The clock may be a little. Why didn't you tell me the time? I didn't think. You know I have to leave, she says. Don't you understand that? Of course I. Call me a cab. I have to go right now. And so I'm imagining this softy, this softy, beautiful, you know, Baricua woman who is like, Patty,
Yeah. Who completely changes.
¿cuánto? You know, like, look at the time.
Mhm.
What are we doing? You
Yeah.
didn't wake me up.
Yeah. Mira, let's go.
Mira, escuche, perdone. And you're like, I know, but I just
Mhm.
wanted to watch you while you slept. You gorgeous human.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just going to read the next paragraph.
Sure.
I stand barefoot in the maelstrom, watching her scrub me off her face and into the bathroom sink. I watch her hastily apply her lipstick and brush her long, dark hair. She straightens her posture and gives one last look in the mirror, profile and front. I wonder if she's checking for a trace, the smallest detectable bit of me hiding in the corners of her eyes or in the fuzziness of her earlobes, along the curve of her lips or in the mole on her chin. She leaves in a blur, and I still stand beneath the cloud of her perfume until it settles on my skin. I love you, she says over her shoulder. The door shuts a little too loudly. Love you too. This was a very sad realization. As you stood there watching her, the thoughts that were going through your mind was she had to remove you,
Mm-hmm.
that you were the problem in this scenario. But it broke my heart as you watched her
Mm.
scrub her face clean of the night love making that you felt that way. It was
Mm-hmm.
very sad. I think that it was a realization for you in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
that door slam.
So it just got to a point, if you live in a closeted secret relationship, you get to a point where you know, how long can you really maintain that? It's not a sustainable relationship. At some point, the shit is going to hit the proverbial fan. Like
Your
people are
heart was
going to,
already being broken.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
your heart was being broken on repeat. Every time she walked out that door, every time she scrubbed her face and put on that lipstick, it was
Hmm. Yeah. And basically, you know,
realization.
scrub the relationship off her, you know, so that it wasn't
Yeah.
detectable. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and there was at one point, and I don't know if we skipped this, But wasn't this the relationship in which you were literally shoved in the closet?
Yes, but that happens in that happens in another story. That the
Yeah.
story that's actually entitled Tyena, where I go way into those details. So this isn't that one, but we'll talk about that.
Well, we'll get there.
Oh, we'll get there.
You know, stick around.
Stick around, people. More to come on that. Closet
And
adventures.
so after that painful goodbye, you then had to get on a train and go look your mother in the face and be the straight daughter too. I mean, you in a way had to perpetuate this image to your parents as well. You just didn't do it in the way that Tyena did it.
Right, because it wasn't like it
A
wasn't
big
like they
secret. I mean, they knew that
but
you loved
they
women at this
but
juncture.
but far more comfortable when I didn't bring one around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Didn't want to see it. Yeah. So there's this woman from this writing class, so why am I thinking about this woman? This strange woman from my writing class as I'm traveling back. So I'm thinking about my mother, I'm thinking about my lover, and I'm thinking about this woman. I didn't even remember her name, but I'll call her Brett, right?
That
Who's
had
from
triggered you years prior.
right. And so there's a connection between this woman in a writing class and all of what's going on, on this train as I travel home. And so I'm just going to read it because she was in this
Yeah.
writing class, and it says Brett was one of those artsy writers who wore a beret, dressed in black, and sported John Lennon glasses. She had written a short story about visiting her estranged father in Vermont, her frumpy, no-class hillbilly father. She had traveled to Vermont by train and stopped in a town called Springfield. It was a dead town, she wrote. The women had teased hair and dead eyes. It was a gray, ugly town with gray, ugly people. She didn't understand how such a place could sustain life. When she finished reading, Professor Mirsky asked for our feedback and critiques. I was furious. Was I angry because she was an arrogant little shit or because I agreed with her? I couldn't tell. I felt a slow wave rolling through my gut. On my turn, I made a few vague comments about the flow of the story and the sharp tone of the narrator. But after class, on our way out into the cold, I asked, "Was that Springfield, Massachusetts, by the way?" "Yes," she said, with a look of surprise. "Have you been there?" She emphasized been and postured to commiserate. "Yes," I said as coolly as possible. "I grew up there." That's when Brett's face changed. I watched it change, watched her eyes blink behind her tiny lenses and her lips curl in subtle repulsion before she could catch herself. I haven't seen Brett since the class ended and only think of her in moments like this. So I'm thinking about Brett as my train approaches Springfield Station and remembering her repulsed expression on the sidewalk that evening. I close my eyes and can see Brett's face peeling away again, peeling away the same way Tyena's did this morning.